For the latest information regarding the COVID-19 pandemic in Cupertino, please visit cupertino.org/coronavirus.
Hey everybody, I am Jeannie Mai, and on behalf of the California Department of Public Health, welcome to you, our Facebook Live audience, and thank you for checking in. With me is Dr. Erica Pan, the California Department of Public Health State Epidemiologist and Infectious Disease Specialist. Hi, Dr. Pan.
Hello, good afternoon.
So great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Absolutely. And today we're going to talk about the COVID-19 vaccines and debunking disinformation. We'll examine how the COVID vaccines are essential to help end the pandemic. I know everybody wants to get out and be normal again. And we're also going to have details about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, how the vaccines benefit you and your community, and more.
And the California Department of Public Health is committed to breaking down barriers and building up confidence so that when you're ready, you can get vaccinated and help us all get beyond this pandemic.
Absolutely. So joining us today are two very, very special guests. Now, you know him as Hikaru Sulu from Star Trek, and she is best known for her role as Kira Yukimura on Teen Wolf. Please welcome George Takei and Arden Cho. Hey, guys.
Hi. Live long and prosper.
Yes.
And we're in quarantine, so stand back. Stand back.
Hold me back over here. So we spoke a little earlier. I know, George, that you are in LA. And Arden, where are you from right now?
I'm in LA right now as well.
Got it. Well, I'm so excited to see you here. Arden and I have known each other for years. So I'm actually, this is like so cool because we haven't been able to see each other since like, I think my birthday a couple years ago.
Virtual hugs.
Yes, absolutely. And then George, everything you've got to say, I just like sit and I'm like, more, George, tell me more stories. This is such a treat.
Well, Dr. Pan and I have a mutual friend named Jay Kuo, who went to high school with Dr. Pan. And Jay is a very dear friend, but also a very gifted composer lyricist who did the music for a musical that we developed on the internment of Japanese Americans during the Second World War. And his music is glorious, but he tells me that both your parents and his parents know each other, and your parents invested in Allegiance. So we are profoundly grateful to your parents that they invested in our show, but also gave birth to you.
Well, thank you. And I very much appreciate it, Legionites. I really enjoyed seeing it. And yeah, Jay and I not only went to high school together in Tucson, Arizona, but we went to the same college as well.
Wow. Okay, we're all about to become family here. We start already. So we have questions from our community for Dr. Pan to shed light on. So should we get into this? Because I'm really excited to get started. All right.
Well, let me start it off. My husband Brad and I got our first shot of phaser on January 21st at the Forum, that huge stadium parking lot. And then we got our second shot on February 11th. Okay. So today, it's been almost 3 months since we got the shot. And the interesting thing that we felt was when we got the shot, we hardly felt it. I mean, it was just a little prick. Mm-hmm. And after the shot, we felt like we felt before. Mm-hmm. Our friends had prepared us by telling us that they got brain fog or exhaustion. We felt none of that. So we thought at first that we didn't get the shot, just that little prick. But we were assured that we did indeed get the shot. So we're fine and we're vaccinated, but not having felt anything since and even before, everything's been the same, we feel that we're naturally invincible. We got the phaser. It's the Pfizer. You know, All those years of Star Trek trained my mouth muscles to say phaser, and immediately Brad chimes in with Pfizer. And so we have a comic routine going. I say phaser, and he says Pfizer, back and forth. So
You need
we're
a
a
little
comic
like
duo. And again, without Brad, I'm calling it a phaser. Do remind me, it's a Pfizer shot that we had, and we feel very good about the whole thing. So I think our feeling is that the Pfizer is the best. But what are the differences between that and Moderna and the JJ?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was actually lucky to be one of the first Californians to get the Johnson and Johnson. Sometimes we call that the one and done. And I'm really grateful that we have three, as you were talking about, three safe and effective vaccines here in the United States. Some of the main differences are that Pfizer and the Moderna are 2 doses. One of them is 3 weeks apart, one of them is 4 weeks apart, and then the Johnson and Johnson again is 1 dose. The most important thing for everyone to know is that they're all incredibly effective to prevent serious infection, meaning hospitalizations and deaths. And again, for some people, the convenience of 1 dose is more important than having those 2 doses. And I'm just, again, really grateful and lucky. All of my immediate family members have gotten different ones of these vaccines, and we are protected and back to spending quality family time together.
They're equally protective, but are there nuanced differences between the three?
Sure. Again, the main difference is that Pfizer and Moderna have the same kind of technology. It's an mRNA technology and the 2 doses. And then the Johnson and Johnson is a different one. It uses a virus vector, but it's not a live virus vaccine at all. And again, it's more convenient as far as it's 1 dose. It's also easier to store. So from a logistics standpoint, as people who are thinking also about vaccine distribution, it's easier to use Johnson & Johnson when you're going on these mobile clinics and things like that, and people that might be harder to get back 3 or 4 weeks later. The side effects are similar for all of them as far as the immediate side effects. Yeah.
Well, the way we felt afterwards, we felt different from all our friends felt. So we think Pfizer is better.
Yeah, I think everyone reacts a little bit differently.
Absolutely. I have friends too have taken combinations of all 3, and from mild, maybe a little tired the next day. I've also heard some rumors about taking a Tylenol, but otherwise pretty much like everybody was just like back to normal after, a couple days after the second one, if they took the 2. Arden, do you have any questions for Dr. Pon?
Yeah, I mean, similar to you guys, I have friends who've had all different vaccines. Of course, there are people that were like, we all got Pfizer, get Pfizer. Then there's a whole group that got Moderna. And then I actually had a lot of friends, surprisingly, I didn't know, but I was just talking to people recently that had gotten the J&J because of what you said, Dr. Pond, that it was one and done and it seemed easy. But I know that there was a brief pause. Dr. Pond, can you tell us a little bit about why or how that pause came about?
Sure, absolutely. So the Johnson & Johnson pause came about actually because our vaccine safety monitoring systems were actually working. So it turned out that, so all of these things are reportable, and the system noted that there were 6 individuals out of millions, almost over 7 million vaccines had been given, and 6 individuals had a very unusual type of blood clot. And those blood clots happened to be in large vessels, and all of these women, they were in their actually in their brains, and also accompanied by something that's different than the kind of blood clots you might get from, for example, birth control pills or other kinds, because they had low platelets. So the pause was really to take a pause, make sure people were aware of it, make sure providers knew. There was something special too. They wanted to make sure clinicians knew to be on the lookout for it, because it changes the way you might treat these blood clots. And also to just take a little bit more time and see if more of these cases were going to show up or not. And a few more did, but again, the risk is extremely low. And at the end of all of it, after looking at all of those studies, it's very clear that the benefits far outweigh the risks of this vaccine. We have seen that women under 50 are the ones that have a slightly higher risk of these unusual blood clots. So women under 50 might really want to take a look at the other 2 options as well. But for some, again, the convenience might be more important. And again, the risk is, about 2 in a million overall for the general population, but 13 in a million for women under 50. So again, it's a little bit of a personal choice, and certainly can talk to others and your doctors as well about that decision.
So if people have received the J&J shot in the last 3 weeks, is there something that they should do or something that they should look out for?
Yeah, I think if within the last 3 weeks, the main symptoms that were associated with a lot of these clots were really serious headaches. And this is beyond that first couple of days. Many of you have talked about the mild side effects that many of us felt like within the first day or so, but really several days in, having, the worst headache of your life. There was another person that had a blood clot in their leg and some swelling. So those are the kinds of symptoms to look for. One of them had some abdominal pain. So those kinds of things would be something to seek immediate attention to your healthcare provider.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, I had surprisingly a lot of like my mom friends that are under the age of 50 that did get J&J, and they said they felt fine. 2 of my friends, both husband and wife, and they both have children, had gotten the shot, and they said they felt great. I was not sure which one to get, but then I got an appointment for Moderna, so I got that. So I guess you're basically saying it is safe to get. But do you think that if women are under the age of 50, they should consider a different shot, or?
I think they should, look again at what their options are, and if, it may depend to how quickly that someone wants to be protected. So to be considered fully vaccinated or protected, you have to be at least 2 weeks beyond either that 1 dose of Johnson & Johnson or the 2nd dose of the Pfizer or Moderna. So that's another factor as well. But there is, again, that's the group that I think I would advise to take the closest look at the risks and benefits. And overall, we again saw that the benefits are far greater, and similar to making other decisions about other medicines, again, like birth control pills or other things like that.
Right. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Amazing. And doctor, I have some questions too, because I have a group of friends who have underlying conditions and they're avoiding getting vaccinated because they don't want to heighten it, and they haven't heard any specifics for, people in that category. So what would you say to them?
I would actually say for almost any underlying medical condition, the risk of actually getting COVID-19 and having more serious outcomes is much higher. And there are no reasons actually not to get vaccinated. So I would actually strongly encourage them to get vaccinated to protect themselves from COVID-19. Because again, you have all been hearing about the really serious outcomes and hospitalizations and deaths from COVID-19. And again, if you have other underlying medical illnesses, some of those actually put you at higher risk for going to the hospital with COVID-19. So the vaccine is actually here to protect you and is just as effective in people who have other conditions.
That's reassuring. Another group of my friends, actually a lot, I hear this, is there's a huge controversy on whether or not the vaccine could interfere with fertility. So I have friends that are either going through IVF or they're trying to get pregnant or they are pregnant. And I also know a lot of fertility centers that issue out a document saying you're fine, it's not going to disturb any part of the process. But they also acknowledge that a lot of studies have not been done because the vaccine is so new. So what is the actual real answer?
So I think they're getting good information in that there's no evidence right now that any vaccines, including COVID-19 vaccines, cause any fertility problems, including any problems trying to get pregnant or anything like that. So there are some vaccines where we recommend a pregnancy test first or something like that, and that is not needed for this vaccine. So again, and the other important thing to know is, again, we've never had this many millions of people vaccinated so quickly after vaccine was developed and authorized. So we have lots of data we're collecting on women and on pregnant women. And so we really have more and more data to show. And again, so far, there's no evidence at all that anything related to fertility, any problems related to fertility.
Okay, that's really reassuring because that's a big controversial question out there.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one. I'm not actually sure sort of where it has come from. I think, it is important to have these kinds of conversations where we're hearing about misinformation out there and trying to debunk those myths.
Absolutely. Arden, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, Dr. Pon, I've been reading and watching the news. And of course, just like you said, there's so many myths and there's so many things that we're hearing. And I feel like there's all these concerns, which is fair. And I was actually sort of one of the later ones to get vaccinated out of my group of friends, mainly because I was scared And then it's not that I wasn't against it. I just was hesitant because I was like, do I get Pfizer? Do I get Moderna? Like my parents got Pfizer. And then, I had friends that were like, no, just get J&J. It's so much easier. But then of course that fertility myth did scare me. But I guess now I'm starting to hear that there's new variants coming up. And obviously, that's a big concern. There are friends that, we still haven't seen each other, even though we've been vaccinated. And so I guess my question is, does the vaccine protect us from new variants? And what sort of can you share with us about?
Sure, that's a great and important question, and we're all watching it closely. But currently, the 3 vaccines we have here in the United States look to be effective against the variants that we've seen circulating. There do continue to be more and more, and we're all closely monitoring for new variants. And some of them may work slightly better than others against variants, but the bottom line is they are protective and certainly much better than actually prior infection and not getting vaccinated at all.
That's great. That's actually a very big relief. I feel like that's a question that so many people have been asking. And, I'll be traveling actually to the East Coast for the first time in about 2 weeks. And I've been a little nervous because haven't really left since quarantine. And everyone in like my near community, oddly enough, hasn't had COVID, even though I feel like we know so many people who have in like that 2nd to 3rd degree, but just in our immediate community, nobody had yet. And so we're like still being very careful. And so, yeah, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I think, again, we're watching that closely, but it's really important to get that vaccine to protect you. And then the manufacturers are looking at, are we going to need boosters at some point? I know that's another common question. Just like we get the flu vaccine every year, that is a possibility because we are seeing these variants that people will need to get boosters later. So that's the other reassuring thing. Once you've already got your system primed, you can always boost it later to strengthen its response to variants.
Oh, okay. So we don't really need to be waiting to like know which one's the best, or actually, yeah. Is that a silly question to wonder if you can double up on shots?
There are no silly questions at all.
I wonder if people have done that. Are there people who got all 3?
I definitely have seen data that, people maybe not even on purpose have gotten different, manufacturers at different times. And actually in the United Kingdom, they're actually studying this. They're actually looking at, is there any benefit to actually getting, but I will say historically with vaccines, we've always recommended stick with the same, manufacturer because that's where all the clinical trials were and all the data was. But there are some studies about this. And right now the recommendation is to stick with one manufacturer unless it's unavoidable.
I can't even imagine like creating a little cocktail inside of me and not knowing the results. That's crazy. I was afraid, just like you, Arden, of taking one. So to anybody out there who's running out there getting samples of everything, that's crazy. But no, I agree with you. I realized when I was so hesitant in the beginning to get any of the shots was one, I wanted to observe other people to just see if something was, I don't know what I was expecting, like a 3rd ear grow out of somewhere, or somebody started walking different. So I was calling all my friends, like checking with them, like getting them to talk to me and see if they were forgetful or anything like that. Of course, nothing like that happened at all. Everybody was super fine. And actually, like you said, George, everybody felt like they had a superpower because they just felt, just like they did their job in order to protect themselves. And for me, I then decided to get vaccinated because I had to get informed. And so I read up as much as I could. And I realized that a lot of times you're hesitant because you just don't know. It's the fear of the unknown, And so for now, for me, making the decision pleases me because it's not just about protecting yourself, but it's also so much about protecting other people. So I'm so glad that we're having this discussion. George, you look like you're deep in thought over there. You've got something to share. I know you do.
Well, it sounds like from what we've been hearing that we are seeing a little light at the end of the tunnel, looking a little optimistic. And we, as I said, are bi-coastal, and we spent more than a year now here in beautiful Los Angeles. I'm proud of LA, but we are eager to get back to our New York apartment and back to the vitality and the energy and the excitement of Manhattan. And so the mayor is talking about opening up later this summer, but what is involved in making, businesses and schools and fitness centers, which I'm concerned about, and all the other things that we need to have in order to be able to uh, open up the city.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, having this conversation is one of the best steps towards it. And I just want to emphasize again, there are no silly questions. Of course, people want good information, but the most important thing to get us back to normal and back to, the theater in New York City and other things is for more people to get vaccinated. So I think the more of us that get vaccinated, the more we get to what we call community immunity. So it's protecting yourself, protecting the loved ones around you. And once we can get to that point where, we have a vast majority of people vaccinated, then, we will be able to reopen and get things back to normal. And in the short term, I think it's also a nice bonus. If you are around other people that are fully vaccinated, you can start to, take off your mask and be indoors. If everyone is in with you is unvaccinated, I mean, it's fully vaccinated, you can all be together. And so it's been so nice. For example, sounds like you've, heard about my parents, and when they could hug my kids and hug their grandparents for the first time in over a year, it was just such an incredible experience. And that's my other thing I like to explain. I feel like vaccinations are our way back to hugs, amongst many other things. But the more people get vaccinated, the easier it will be to keep our case rates low and make sure that we can get back to normal.
Well, I'm a theater person. I work in the theater, but if I'm not performing on stage, I'm usually in the audience watching my very gifted friends performing on stage. And theater, it seems, is still way off. And so I'm hoping, since we got our second Pfizer shot, it's been almost 3 months. How much have we learned in the real, not the clinical studies, but beyond that, in the 3 months that we've been vaccinated, or other people have gotten vaccinated before that? So, in the real life experience, have we learned anything more?
Yeah, we sure have. Thank you for asking that question too. So we call that effectiveness as opposed to, the technical terms for the trials or efficacy. And we have more and more data accumulating. A couple recent studies showing that after these trials that we have over 90% protection from infection from these vaccines in the real world. And again, we have vaccinated over 100 million people in the United States and over 200 and something doses, I believe. And so again, this is an unprecedented experience to be able to have this much data this quickly. We just started vaccinating people, I think December were some of the earliest, right, when it first arrived. So we're only about 5 months in, and to have this many millions of people vaccinated and this much experience. So yeah, more and more data showing over 90% overall amongst healthcare workers came out. And then there was another study just this week that showed that amongst people over 65, I think it was an over 95% protection. So really, really effective vaccines, especially again against the most concerning consequences, which are hospitalization or death.
Well, I've been on a campaign to urge all my friends and people that I don't know to get vaccinated. However, what I'm discovering is that there are some people that say they don't believe in vaccines and they're resistant to it. But it's just belief. It's not based on science, I'm discovering. How do we deal with these people?
I think there are a lot of different approaches, and we're spending a lot of time trying to do surveys and focus groups and trying to understand and really trying to answer people's questions. So again, I really appreciate an opportunity like this to be able to hear the common questions and be able to respond. And I think, meeting people where they are and understanding, is it a fear, as some of you mentioned, of the unknown, or just wanting to see more experience, and hopefully getting people good information. I think a lot of it is access to just being able to, there's some people that maybe aren't opposed to it, but you just need to bring the convenience to them. Like we've seen with flu vaccine, if you bring flu vaccine to people's work sites, then you get a much higher vaccination rate. And then I think there are people with beliefs, like, as you said, that we need to really understand what are those beliefs and how do we understand them and work with other trusted leaders and community messengers to help get the messages across.
Well, I've been telling them, just take a look at on the news what's happening in India. People that are gasping. I mean, millions of people gasping for survival. And I'm telling them that that's the other option. If you don't take it, If you can't take the vaccine because of some belief, that's going to happen to you. You're increasing the chances of that kind of disaster, calamity happening to you. Doesn't seem to persuade them.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult thing. I think, and just to bring it home, right here in California during our winter surge, we were having to get extra oxygen to the hospitals, actually right there in Southern California where a few of you are. And, right here in the United States, we really almost overwhelmed our healthcare system. And as you saw in certain cities, and as we all saw in New York City last year, I think it can quickly get out of control, and vaccines are our best protection. I think some of these other tools are really helpful as well, such as making sure until we get people vaccinated, people wear their masks. Testing is another tool, but I think it's only good for when you take the test. And we've seen lots of examples where people take the test and the next day they were infecting other people. So vaccines are really our best protection. And I really hope we can continue to work on people's beliefs and get our whole community vaccinated.
Well, thank you for all the ammunition that you've given us today. But I don't know with some of these crazy people, seeing what's happening in India doesn't persuade them.
You definitely don't have to remind me what it was like in the early days of the pandemic. I was literally spraying alcohol all over my groceries. Like guys, there was a moment where at the time my fiance and I, we wouldn't go into the house with our clothes. So we would disrobe like naked in the foyer and then walk through our house to go to the shower, to then shower and then put on dishwashing gloves to go take the dirty clothes from the foyer and then go put it in the wash with like hot water and wash them like twice over. I'm not doing that again. So get us away from that. And you brought back memories, George, about going to the gym and being able to be at the theater. I drove by Six Flags the other day and there was like 2 cars in the parking lot and some of my favorite roller coasters, the Superman. I was like, oh my God, like the littlest things that I took for granted. Now I would just die to be on, So what about for you?
Please don't die. Please
yeah,
don't
I won't
die.
die. I'm living to be on. I'm living. What about for you, Arden? When it comes to the pandemic being over, like what do you miss the most?
Oh my, I miss community. It's odd that I'm an introvert, so I do actually love being at home, and I was such a clean freak, so I kind of like that everybody else was being very clean. Yeah. I miss seeing my friends, and I actually just this last week saw one of my best friends from Hawaii for the first time in a year and a half. We spent a week together and we got to like eat out, and it felt nice because we had been very quarantined. Her and her husband had never left the island or their home. And so it just feels great to be able to see friends and family safely. I'm going to see my mother this weekend. And it's like, these are things that obviously for the last year and a half, we haven't been able to do. And so I really, really hope that everyone, whether they're afraid or they're unsure or against it, hope that they would do the research and learn and get vaccinated so that we can just get back to what we might call normal. Although I think normality has changed now, but yeah, at least as close as we can get. And so, yeah, that's what I'm hoping for and excited about.
Absolutely. So will travel be safe? It's pretty soon, Dr. Pan?
Yeah, and actually, again, those of you that are fully vaccinated actually can travel now, but it is interesting, more and more airlines and countries actually in Asia are increasingly requiring proof of vaccination. And it's required for a lot of large events now, or at least some proof of testing or vaccination is one of the common approaches here in California. So it's really important to keep your record in place. And I know there are more and more applications evolving that can help you verify that you've been vaccinated. But yes, I think if you're fully vaccinated, it is a-okay to travel and see those people that you miss if they're vaccinated as well.
I have a frustration and a puzzlement. The musical that we developed for Broadway, Allegiance, we sold the rights to Japan to produce, translate it and produce it in Japan. And the production opened in early April in Tokyo. And we really wanted to go for that opening. And we had been vaccinated twice. And we felt that we were fine. but Japan will not let you in. I mean, in their decision, without quarantining in Japan for 2 weeks, 14 days. And you know, the hotel costs in Tokyo are staggering. I'm not going to stay in the hotel room for 14 days. And so we thought the production was supposed to move to Nagoya, halfway down Japan, and play for a week there. We thought we might go there, and the 14-day quarantine still remained, and it was going to have its final run in Osaka in late April. And so we were planning, hoping, praying that we could go to Japan in late April. And still, the 14-day quarantine exists. So we may be all right in the United States, but it's the foreign countries that are still putting up barriers. And it's hard to believe that Tokyo is going to be hosting the Olympics, a global athletic event, and they require a 14-day quarantine. It's absolutely baffling and frustrating. And we never were able to see. They sent us the actors singing some of the beautiful songs translated into Japanese. And the translation was so poetic, so beautiful, and so moving. And we desperately wanted to see it, but that opportunity is gone because of, and the vaccination rate in Japan is way below ours. So
Really?
how do you figure that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, and then there are other countries that, of course, India is the worst, but there are many other countries who are having surges right now too. And to your point, I think we've had access to vaccine much earlier than many countries, so we're really lucky. So it may take longer. I think it will take longer for the rest of the world to get vaccinated, but I think it's great the United States is starting to be able to help contribute to that. But we're so lucky here in the United States to have vaccine and have this much protection. So I hope everyone takes advantage of it.
Absolutely. Well, that's all about our time. I am so filled with so much information and confidence now. Dr. Pond, thank you so much for your patience with all of our questions and for being so detailed and so equipped with all the information that we need to know in order to make the right decision. Now, everybody else, thank you for being such a great audience. Please do comment and tell us what you guys are looking forward to the most after getting vaccinated. And a very, very big thanks to our special guests. And be sure to find all the information that we spoke about and more at vaccinateall58.com/info. Or you can just call 833-422-4254 in language assistance and help us spread the word about vaccine positivity to our community. Thank you so much, everybody. George, Arden, you guys were great. I'm so glad we're all protected, so I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Really nice to see you all.
Of course. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
For the latest information regarding the COVID-19 pandemic in Cupertino, please visit cupertino.org/coronavirus.